Right there. All right, cool. Oh, it was like, what do you think this is? Bruh. All right, sounds good. Everything's ready? I'm ready. Today we give failure a beatdown. Let's go.
I can never sleep, I don't got too many days. Food for thought, feeding your success with the base. I can't quit the game, gotta focus till I finish. I was in the cage, yeah, now I know I'm living. They be working hard, trying to keep you in the chains. If you got your mind charged, you ain't gotta stay. Woo!
This is the Sam Jones Talks podcast, episode 13, Converting Failure into Success. If you're like me, you want to know how to get that done, because failure, sometimes it sends us on a loop. Feels like a punch in the belly. You thought you was going to succeed, you thought you was going to win, and then you fall flat. Feels like, man, what am I supposed to do at this point? Well, today I'm going to hand you some nuggets that will hopefully help you to be able to convert failure into success. Let's get into it. So, failure is like an opposing energy, right? And what scientists tell us about energy is that energy can be converted. As a matter of fact, the scientific term is called energy conversion, and it's basically taking energy from one form and converting it into another. So I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a car at the top of a hill facing downward, and there's another car at the bottom of the hill. Those cars facing each other, between them is potential energy, right? But if you go now and take the car on the top of the hill and put it in neutral, the more it gets closer to the car at the bottom, that energy, that potential energy starts to get converted into kinetic energy. And kinetic energy is the energy that takes place when things start going in motion. So the energy is converted. And I think that that's the challenge for most of us when we look at failure. We don't realize that we have the potential, and in the failure, there's potential to succeed. So we don't know how to convert our potential energy, our potential success into actual success. So let's look at it in a little bit deeper. Now, I don't want to just throw you a bunch of ideas and concepts. Let's get into the details on how you can get this done. So the first thing that's necessary in being able to convert failure into success is the way you see things. The way you look at things can affect your outcome, your behavior, and can change the very outcome of the thing that you're trying to attain. So let's say, for example, you had a piece of coal. Now that coal may have the potential to be turned into a diamond, but if you don't know the value, if you don't understand what you're looking at, you throw away the coal because it's not what you think it should be, and you lose the opportunity. And that's what failure is. It's a stepping stone. There's great potential and wealth in failure if you know how to look at it. Let's say I took your success and I wrapped it in failure. Let's say your success, it was a gift, but the gift wrapping paper was failure. A lot of us hit that failure and we won't go any further. Man, I ain't opening that thing. I don't want the problem. But in the center, the very crux of that gift, the very crux of that failure is your success. If you only had the perspective to look at it differently, you would realize that failure would be the best thing that ever happened to you. Now, I want to bring your attention to a pair of glasses that I really like, that I will never buy. The Cartier Paris 18 karat, right? It's these glasses that Cartier makes. They're 18 karat gold. They cost about $25,000. So obviously they have tremendous value. But if there's mud on the lens of those glasses, no matter how valuable they are, because you can't see properly, the value gets devalued. That's the case with us. Some of us have tremendous value if you only knew what you were worth. But because of your perspective is a little muddy, you lose value. You don't think that you can get back up. You see failure as something to be scared of when it's a stone to step on. It's not a stumbling block. It's a stepping stone. You step on failure and you move up higher. So we're going to get into how this is possible. Now, you have to interpret things right. What do I mean? All right, let's say, for example, I was talking about Humpty Dumpty, right? And I told the story of Humpty Dumpty and how he sat on the wall and he had a great fall. And I had an interpreter, but the interpreter interpreted it incorrectly. After I said it, he told you that I called you Humpty Dumpty, said that you were shaped like Humpty Dumpty, and your face looks like a wall. Now, the interpretation messed things up. It affects the way you see things, and now it affects your actions, because maybe now you want to get physical. It affects the very outcome of what should have been a joke. Now it turned into something different because the way you interpreted, or the way what I said was interpreted, was incorrect. And when you interpret failure the wrong way, it develops fear. It makes you doubt yourself and your ability because you interpreted something that should have helped you as a problem. Look at skateboarders. Many skateboarders fall. Matter of fact, they fall consistently. But any good skateboarder who is worth his or her salt takes those falls and learns from them. And after a while, they don't fall the same way. As I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, they even have videos where they teach you how to fall because skateboarders understand that failing is part of succeeding. So they teach you how to fall because you're gonna fall, you're gonna fail, but the skateboarder understands that you have to get back up. And the thing is to learn from that failure, learn from that fall, and then let it cause you to become more successful. I think the guys who are like millionaires are probably the guys who failed the most. So it's their perception on failure. Somebody else would have fell and said, I give up. Look, I broke my arm, I'm not doing this anymore. The guy who you look up to if you're a skateboarder dude, who you think is awesome, who makes like 10 million a year, he broke his arm and said, I'm getting back up. It's something I did on that spin, the way I threw my body, I can't do that the same way. And so the way you interpret it, the way you think about it, affects whether or not failure can be a tool you can use or something that scares the life out of you and stops you from moving further. Now, this has a lot to do with your mindset. I like to call it the champion mindset. Not a winner mindset, because anybody could win something once. But a champion, by definition, is someone who beats rivals. They just keep winning. Now, the reason a champion wins is because even in their defeat, they see an opportunity to switch things up and become better. So even if you beat a champion, that may be the best thing that ever happened to them, because they're going to go home, if they're a boxer, study the tape, see what they did wrong, see what you did wrong or what you did right, and by the time they meet you the second time, it should be a different situation, because they're a champion. Even the failure, they're going to use it to their benefit. Now, in failing, there's some challenges that come along. Stress comes along. And I know the feeling of that. And sometimes we don't have the right tools to deal with the stress that comes with failing. So I'm going to hand you a few tools that may be able to help you. One thing that's very important is a healthy diet. I know. Sounds crazy, but it's true. Imagine if you were running a race and you were dehydrated. Imagine if you was trying to solve some math problem, but you were starving. Your body being in those states adds more stress to an already stressful situation. So something as simple as your diet can add more stress. So eating right, drinking right, giving your body what it needs to be able to face that fight. Very necessary. And decompression. Sometimes we're so charged and under stress. We have stress on the job, stress at home, stress with our girls, stress with our husband, stress with the kids, stress on the roads. All this stress hitting you. Some of it's even hitting you and you're not even aware. It's psychological and it's happening on a level you're not thinking of, but you're just bearing the pressure. And now when another situation comes up, it just feels like you're gonna bust. The veins in your head's popping and you feel like you're gonna lose it. Decompress. Breathe. Sometimes it's good to turn off Netflix. Sometimes it's good to walk away from a situation and just breathe. Sit in a room for 30 minutes and don't do anything. Turn off your phone, which is difficult for a lot of us, I know. But you gotta decompress, get that pressure off of you. So when you deal with the failure, it doesn't feel like another thing that went wrong. You could look at it and say, wait a minute, I see an opportunity here. You can't do that when you're mismanaging the stress that comes into your life. And another thing, for those of you who drink or get high, you may wanna stop that. That's like going into fire with gasoline drawers. Whatever stress you're under, being drunk and high only intensify it. Whatever bad decision you would have probably made as a sober-minded person, your decision's gonna be 10 times worse because now you don't have the brakes. Something that would tell you to stop. Wait a minute, I shouldn't say that. Or I shouldn't do that. When you're high and drunk, the brakes are off the car. All you got is go. And that's what causes you to turn up and run into a situation that's stressful and make it more stressful. So if you can, walk away from drinking, walk away from smoking, because it won't serve you well. It'll feel good, but it won't produce anything of value. And then another thing that creates stress is us. Sometimes we beat ourselves up. We didn't accomplish the goal, and in your own mind, it's like you're bullying yourself. You messed up, you're dumb. You should have done, man, I shouldn't have done that. And you feel all this pressure and it's happening in your head. No one's talking to you. No one's putting you under pressure. You're stressing yourself out. Sometimes you got to tell the voice in your head to shut up. That's brass. I don't talk like that. You better. You got to do what's necessary to win. And if you're getting in your way, you got to remove you. Whatever gets in your way, whatever adds additional stress, you have to remove it. Because success requires clear-minded thinking. And if you're getting in the way of your thinking, you got to remove you. You got to tell you, chill. I'm all right. I made a mistake, but I can do better. What did I do wrong in the situation? Where can I learn from this? Where in here is there a lesson to be learned? Don't just look at it like a loss. Remember, it's the way you see it. It's the way you interpret failure that can cause you to succeed at the end of the failure or fail more greatly or fail into a deeper failure. Last but not least, if all of these things that I mentioned to you feels like, yo man, I can't wrap my head around that. I don't think I've tried these things you've said. It's 2 weeks later from the time I saw that podcast. I don't feel like it's working. Maybe you may have to seek professional help. Maybe it's more than you can handle. Maybe you need a person that you can speak to who's honest and clear thinking. What you don't want to do is, if you're a drug addict, you don't want the person that you go to help for to be a drug dealer. Not level-headed, and the advice they give you is not going to serve. You want somebody who's thinking more clearer than you. Somebody who's just a little more honest than you. Someone who's going to tell you the truth and hold your secrets there. They're not going to post about it. When you find a person like that, that also helps with decompressing and getting things off your chest. Sometimes you'll be surprised how just speaking about things and getting it off your chest makes you feel better. And now you can actually think clearly. So there are a couple things that you can do to help you focus your thinking and think clearly about stress and how to deal with it, because you're gonna have stress, you're gonna have problems, you're gonna have issues, but the way you think about it, the way you see it, the way you interpret it is what affects your outcome. Now these are 4 guys that you will never fail greater than. You will never. These guys have failed tremendously on so many levels. They've failed their situation, they've failed their companies, they failed individuals, and I want you to look at what their outcome has been only because of how they interpret failure. Let's look at Steve Jobs. He got fired from Apple, right? And he went into other little ventures. I shouldn't say little, he made mad money. But he butt his head, made mistakes, failed, but he increased his value so much in the midst of those failures that Apple, when they ran into a situation, into an actual issue, because it seemed like they lost their level of creativity and forgot the very meaning and purpose of what they were creating, they had to turn around and get him. And what happened was the failure that he faced now added to his value. So when Apple had to rehire him, they had to pay more money for him. He interpreted his failures differently, and this is what Steve Jobs said about failure. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Who talks about failure like that? Someone who perceives failure as a stepping stone. Someone who's decided, I'm going to use failure to get where I'm going. Let's look at Bill Gates. He dropped out of Harvard U, right? Started a company, Trafo Data. It was garbage. It failed terribly. As he continued, each failure taught him something to eventually Bill Gates at 31 became the youngest self-made millionaire of his time. This is what Bill said about failure. It's fine to celebrate success, but it's more important to heed the lessons of failure. So Bill Gates is looking at failure like his teacher, like it's teaching him something, it's improving something in him. Michael Jordan summed up his failures like this. He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games 26 times. I've been trusted to take the game's winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. It almost sounds crazy. He's saying, I listed all the things that I failed at, and then at the end of the failure, he said, that's why I succeeded. Failure was the reason I succeeded, because every time I failed, I learned from it and used it to better myself. So what I'm saying to you is, you gotta remember that failure isn't final. It's an opportunity to build a better you, if your perception of failure is correct. I think that's real good right there. I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna go any further, but if you have any questions about failure, if you wanna dig in deeper, if you have concerns, if you have comments, leave them, I will answer. And if need be, I'll bring in other people who can talk to you about failure and how they converted failure and how failure helped them. And here's another thing. If you want to wrap your mind around failure and how to convert it, just think back to some of the things you failed at and how those things help you. I don't care if it was a girlfriend you was with and the relationship went bad, but it helped you to make a better decision on choosing girlfriends going forward. I know that was the case with me. Look at some of the things you was going after. You wanted to accomplish this thing, but it fell flat and it didn't work out. And thankfully, because you was about to put $1,000 or $500 into this thing that failed, or whatever the situation is, look back over your failures and look at how they benefited you. And that'll help you to think, wait a minute, if that failure benefited me that way, this failure can benefit me this way. And it starts changing your thinking so that even when you fail, you believe you can succeed. You see a path through your failure. You see a golden opportunity where other people see failure, and I guarantee you, you will succeed, because failure can't stop you. You convert it into a friend, you convert it into a teacher, you convert it into a stepping stone, and you will win. Reach for the highest good. I'm out. I'm really out. You guys can turn it off.